All right, matey. So we're going to have a go at chatting
Programmable
about
matter.
programmable matter because it seems like it's a very interesting subject. But as you've just conveyed, the same as me, we don't know a lot about it. So we're just going to sort of like try and
As
tease our
in,
way through this, or
say a man makes something like a car. The car then goes out of the actual factory. Then the guy you're driving the car. What it seems to be about nature. Within nature, no, if you imagine then you're driving the car, you don't get to the end of the life of the car, and it gives you 10% of the car, then produces another one. It's
Mhm.
almost like we somehow or another the capitalist system always wants you to go back to the shop to get a new car. As we should know that within this new dimension we're living in, it should be a case of everything should be replicating itself, as in like a acorn. Inside that acorn, there's a mechanic, there's the components, DNA, whatever, and then there's the instruction system within there. So I mean, it's like you say, how the hell does that work? What there's got to be, then there's got to be electromagnetism working on light, hasn't there?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Very interesting. So everything involved in nature is self-replicating via its genius and its DNA. And so, to use the acorn then as an example, the oak tree bears its fruit, and its fruit potentially are its offspring that's going to go doing it again. And so, if everything in nature works like this, human beings, of course, working like it, then what would you say has happened to, and we're all made of matter, we're all made of intelligent matter. So when we produce things from a factory, it's all, again, it's intelligent matter, but it's had the programming taken out of it or not put into it. What do you think?
Well, there's no. It's almost like somebody builds your house, but the builder's not in the loft, is he? He's gone. You know,
Yeah.
they've pulled him away. Everything's like that. Electricity, you've got to go to some substation. Everything seems to be given to us, but you've got to go to a point of reference to get it. As
Yeah,
opposed to nature, it's all in a little nucleus.
that's right. And you see, this was the whole thing behind the Tesla free energy, because he had this machine that he designed that could be outside or one place, or several in a village or whatever, and these machines would constantly generate enough energy for the township, and they would
So
use
did that energy move through the sky then, through the air? Apparently,
well
a bit like 5G then, isn't it?
well, yes, and you see, nobody wants to talk about what it was, but if you look at dark energy and dark matter, then
Mm-hmm.
what scientists say about this dark energy, that if you have 1 squared centimeter of this dark energy, then that energy is enough to evaporate every single ocean on the planet. So can you imagine the energy, the heat source which is in that's going to evaporate every single ocean on the planet? And so this dark matter and dark energy, two uh, similar things from what I can gather. I don't recollect what the difference is, but it's all around. It's in the air
But
that we breathe.
isn't that again a scientific? They put the word dark, they put the word black and all this lot when it's kind of not, is it? It's a
Oh,
wonderment to they demonize it and
yeah,
put like some.
perfect. Because I was speaking to, I think I was speaking to Jonathan last night, and we was mentioning this, and he said something about dark. Well, why dark? And I said, well, it's like why the Dark Ages, because there's no information about it. But you see, if you want to encourage scientists and people to be enthusiastic about it, then
Yeah,
instead of calling it dark energy, you call it the super wisdom and
yeah,
self-replicating energy of the universe. And then all of a
that.
sudden, how many graduate physicists would you get? I'm interested in this super energy of all this business, and that, rather than dark matter. What's dark matter? Oh, it's just dark. You know, nothing
Yeah,
involved, nothing going on.
there's nothing left to the conversation, is there?
Yeah,
When
it's
you
over,
actually
isn't
put
it?
that out,
Yeah,
exactly. It's like a blackboard. You go, what's that? It's a blackboard. Can I have some chalk then, please, to whiten the darkness? No, we haven't got any chalk, but
Yeah.
it's a dark board, you know.
Instead
And
of like saying a blackboard, it's a facility for educating from, or it's a platform to educate from. That's what that is. Why it's a blackboard or black mirror, you know, or black box, and all this business going on. These dark fuckers.
So going into, like you say, if we just go back to the acorn thing there again, so it sends off the information, little tiny circular acorn that drops it's the floor, but in that is that mighty oak. Isn't that absolutely incredible? But we never ask that. We never say. We always go look for this God thing. Inside that acorn is God. Inside is the little mechanic. He's in there, ready to kind of go right. We know exactly. Like we looked at that tree that time in Lincoln that was coming off that hill, and we know that if it didn't check its trajectory, it would have gone straight over. But it was checking each time it went up, probably.
Absolutely, they appear to be sentient creatures. But for the benefit of the viewer that we may have not explained ourselves, this dark matter, otherwise known as black goo, it apparently...
It's programmable matter.
Programmable matter, yeah, but let's just talk about the origin. They are saying, some people are saying that it was brought via aliens. It was brought during the Atlantean period. People, this is wacky, yes, I know, but there's a lot of wacky shit that you've got to get your heads around these days. It's a bit like CERN, that's fucking wacky as well. So, let's just talk about the Atlanteans. They had the ability to open up a wormhole. This black goo came in, and it's just like oil, it's like tar, it's an actual substance that exists, and it's very, very sought after, and every power on this planet has been involved in it at some stage, and they're involved in it now, and the properties that it has like a sentience, and it can self-replicate and create anything it absolutely wants to. How does it do that?
Because again, like we said, we can ask how an acorn does that. So the same with the black goo. It's all of a sudden it tunes into the information field, and the information field will then give it the information to replicate and build itself. This is what I said to you.
It tunes into the information field. So what does it do? Does it have some sort of relationship with the Akashic records, whereby it can draw down? Because obviously, in this black matter, to have all of the information of the universe within it is a stretch of the imagination. But
why is it?
Well, I don't know, because you think that this information is vast, but if this information doesn't entail any matter, then there's no reason why, you know, at the end of the day, look at a quantum computer. It's a tiny little chip like this, and it can do so much shit. So I don't know, Paul. I'm just speculating.
It's like me. I'm just talking to you now. A little tiny gnat went past me, and it went past me, and in there's a little. It's got a little heart, a little pair of eyes, and it's so small. I mean, what the hell's it's? What's it here for? It just flew past the camera. What I'm saying is, because we think it's so small, it doesn't matter how small this stuff is. It still tunes into the same field as we're tuning into.
Yeah.
It's just so small and so tiny. We think it's irrelevant, you know.
So what can it do, this black goo?
Well, what it's do, it's the foundation. It's almost like the saying. It's to do with like the original essence of it. It came through, like say, like a time and space thing. I'm not too kind of keyed up on that. Like you said, you was looking into it. I'm looking into the programmable matter.
Yeah.
It's the same context. But what it's saying is, if it's just because it looks like it's like the planarian worm. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Which will kind of like the planarian worm. What they've done, they get them on the petri dish, and what they'll do, they'll chop its head off, right? But before they've chopped its head off, they've teached it. There's a blue light and a piece of sugar. So what happens is, if you put the blue light on, the planarian worm, it'll scurry over to the edge of the petri dish and turn around away from the blue light. So what they did was put sugar below the blue light. Then the planarian worm got to the sugar, and then went back to its original side of the dish. And then they cut its head off, and then it grows a new head and a new brain. And it knows exactly not to be scared of the blue light, because the information is already tuned into the field.
Wow.
because it's a new brain
And
and a
this is the
new
whole
eye.
morphic resonance sort of thing. Once one does it, then the information is born into the others, and it's very very similar in which the principle that these new robots, Sophia, are tuned into, and her entourage, because when one of these robots learns something, the information then goes up into the cloud, and then it's distributed with every single bot on the planet. So simultaneously, every bot learns from one bot's experience. And so if you can just imagine like one human being going around this planet, then the information that we are gathering, we're learning, it's being recorded, isn't it? Evidently it's being recorded
Exactly.
in this morphic field, because it's being utilised by nations which you see, millions of years ago, or hundreds of thousands of years ago, when the continents were broke, i.e. When the Aborigines started to evolve on Australia, and then the Africans were evolving in Africa, and all the different places. All these human beings are all evolving around seemingly this similar sort of time, but we all generate a language, and the language is very, very similar. Of course, the language, the words, they're different phonetic, but the principle behind it is the same, because it derives from the human being. And so this morphic resonance thing, this ability for information to travel through, you see, 50 years ago, or maybe 100 years ago, people would be very, very pessimistic or doubtful about this happening. But now we know we're sitting here, and like Jonathan said to me last night, he said, there's fucking movies all around me. There's music all around me. There's just everything conceivable. It's all around me. Everything. Somewhere around you, Paul, there's Batman and Robin, there's Arnold Schwarzenegger, Total Recall, there's Mary Poppins, and
Well, that's it. So when you actually look at it, all we're doing is understanding. All we're doing is building ourselves, like we've said, building ourselves back to what we are. That's all we're doing. We're going this. Oh, we're scared of these robots, this, that, and the other. Like I said, it's all carbon. Eventually, we'll just be carbon based. All we're doing is we're going in a circle. That's all I can say. All we're doing is we're all going, oh, these robots are fucking us. There's going to be no difference eventually. We're just going to build ourselves back to another starting point. It's like Back to the Future, isn't it?
Yeah, yes, and when you look at all these pyramids and the ancient civilizations and all that which we know nothing about now, then you have to wonder. Then,
Well, they found pyramids in Tenerife now. They found them in Tenerife as well.
No,
there's some on the actual island. Parts of them. Yeah, on the island. You have a look. And then basically, like I say, they're all coming out of these countries open, like China. It was everywhere. It was all being built pretty much the same kind of time. And you know what, Aaron, when you actually break it down, it's just like you said, we've had a wipeout. We've been at this stage or further before, and it's just been wiped out, and we started again, probably 2,000 or 3,000 years ago. Well, no, 8,000 years ago, I would say.
Yeah. And so getting back to this self-replicating black goo or transforming matter, the film Transformers, I watched a video of some scientists who are messing around with this black goo technology. What's the terminology you use?
Well, I use programmable matter.
Yeah, programmable matter. They're talking about programmable matter, and what they're doing is effectively they've got kind of like boards with projectiles which can stick up. It's a bit like one of these nail games where you tip the nails like this, you put a hand in it, and it gives that. But only what you can do is with your hand movements, you can draw it up, you can put it down, because it's got some sort of sensory mechanism going on. Then they go on to show you one of these transforming cars. This programmable matter, it can decide whether it wants to be an airplane, or whether it wants to be a car, or whether it wants to be a rocket or something like this. all the information is the same. It just picks and chooses. It's a bit like, Paul, the only difference between us and the banana is about 3% of the DNA. And so if the banana had that extra 3% of DNA, then it could transform itself into a human being. So it's becoming really, really interesting how the world's going now with the level of information that we've got. Seeing, we're almost at the point of realizing our godliness.
How long will it be before Jurassic Park? We never talked about this. How long is it before they get the DNA out of a deceased dinosaur?
If they haven't already. Well, actually, they reckon they have got dinosaur DNA now.
There you go then. So once they've actually worked out how to actually rebuild this thing, well, they'll splice it onto, like you said, they'll splice it onto a different animal, and then the embryo will come out and it will change and morph into that extra 2 or 3% that's missing, and then you're going to get it. As simple as that. They don't need to grow it up. They obviously create like an artificial womb that it can grow into, you see. So it's all going to be all available.
They don't need to fuck around with any living thing. They don't need to compromise any moral standards, because they're not dealing with a life form as we know it. It is a life form. They're saying it is a life form. It's alive. It's intelligent, and it can choose what the fuck it wants to be. I don't know whether it can do this randomly of its own volition, or whether we have to put a code in it somehow, or flick a switch, because the only thing is about this DNA stuff, Paul, that makes scientists reckon now that every single thing on the planet has the potential of being the same DNA. And what happens is, within certain strains and species, that certain switches have been turned off. And if the switch in the banana has the 3% turned off that makes it turn into a human being, then that's why it exists in the banana form. And then you can just go onto every living thing on the planet, switches on and switching off. The information's the same. And so if you look then at the information, then this transformable energy, that's got all the information. All you got to do is tweak the switches.
All you've got to do is program it. Again, is these computers just an early stage of, like you said, this is a programmable system. If you could put something in, then it's only like the 3D printer, isn't it? If you've seen one of those, you can put in one end, I want a kettle, and all of a sudden it'll build a plastic kettle inside this cube. You open the door and there's a kettle. It's come from cyberspace, so it's come from nowhere into reality. So it's as if to say that we had no. Since the 1990s, we've had no choice, but now we're in 2018 to look where we are and what we're at. We're on this edge of anything's going to be possible. Even, you see, the thing is with, like you say, this D-wave stuff as well, same kind of thing. It's saying now that we can only think to a certain level. It doesn't matter if you're the most intelligent human being on the planet. What these things will do is think 1,000 times higher than
quantum computers.
Quantum computers than anything you've ever thought of. So if the highest thing you can think of, the most complex, their complexity is 1,000 times more, so that their question will be 1,000 times more advanced than our question.
1,000 times more? Are you sure it's not like a gazillion times more?
Well, it will be eventually, but we're the same. The first jump will be 1,000 from the first point of singularity. For that next first few days, it's 1,000. So what they're saying is, it's almost we kind of like can only think to a certain degree. We can only get a car, for instance, and go, oh, this car can only go, the fastest I can get a car, let's say 450 mile an hour. I can't go any faster than that. And then it's a bit like the 100-meter runner years ago. Once he broke the 10-second, then there was all breaking the 10-second barrier or whatever. It's all part of the limitations of the brain and the mind. So it's going to be. This is why they're frightened of it, because the thing, once it thinks past 1 degree higher than Einstein, we're in the shit street, because we're not going to know what it's thinking.
Yeah, and once it gets autonomous, once it finds this singularity, then if we've got this self-replicating matter, that it can draw it out of the dark energy It just
Zero
draws
zero
it.
point field, isn't it? The 0 point field.
Yeah, it's all around. We're in it. And you see, when you start talking about the spectrum of light that the human being can see, the spectrum of audio that we can hear, and everything else pertaining to our senses, it's
Narrow band.
extremely pathetically tiny. And so whenever we are in a position to accept this information, then we should really have a level of acceptance that, hang on, if we are 1 million of the distance all out there, and so open mind, should
Experience to say this is what it's where people say totally from what we're doing. We're talking about the story.
Side to go round. Now is your limited weight of quantum jump, extreme when we take empty injection, or we get in a deep state, or any number of psychological anomaly. When you go outside the regular paradigm of consciousness, then this is absolutely incredible. And you know, I always wanted, when I was a kid, to be able to see another world, Paul. And this is why I'm so enthralled with this DMT. Only it doesn't last long enough, but apparently if you take chaga or changa with it, then it will last about 45 minutes. If you can be in this world, which is, you know, very, very different, for 45 minutes, man, I'm telling you, goodness me, I couldn't really see any reason why I wouldn't want to be in it every day.
Well, this is it, isn't it? It depends whether or not it's almost like you've got like a speed blocker on an accelerator though. It makes you wonder if after a while whether or not you'd like tune out, how it would affect the mind. You know, I don't know whether we're built for that dimension to stay in there that long. It's a bit like you said. Where can you? What the changa? Do you put it in the same kind of with the DMT? Do you smoke it at the same time?
Yeah, I don't know what the exact process is, but lots of people are turning me on to doing it together. And Guy, he talks about it a lot, and I'm not sure whether he's done it or not, but yeah, you get a trip lasting for less than an hour, something like that, and it's a very, very beautifying experience apparently. And so I'm really up for that, because when you take the DMT with open eyes and you go into a different world, well, not exactly a different world, it's still a semblance of this world, only everything's different. You know,
Everything's kind of enhanced and changed
yeah, all
slightly.
the
Yeah.
trees are in exactly the same space, and all the buildings are in exactly the same space, and the skies and the
Right.
clouds are up in the sky and everything like that. It just all goes different. And so this is something that's really, really marvelously refreshing. When you can proverbially go down the rabbit hole and you go into Wonderland.
Exactly. Exactly. So the Quinn Michaels thing, have you seen any of his videos lately? You know, the same guy I was talking about.
Yeah, I mean, lately, about a week ago, I saw the last
Did
one.
you see? Did you see that one where he was in speaking to the IBM guy in this new? He was in this conference. He was talking to this guy, and this guy was saying that he was mentioning microtubules, which we know that's Hammerhoff mentioning them. Can you remember?
Yeah, Stuart Hammerhoff.
He reckons that they've created. And
they reckon that consciousness is deriving from the microtubules in the brain, yeah?
But what they're doing is they've made them into a form that's inside of a computer.
Right.
So he was talking microtubules, he was talking, this guy, normal suited IBM guy at this conference, talking to this Quinn Michaels, was interviewing him and saying about the, again, the 0 point field, all this stuff. You know, it's almost like reaching in somewhere and don't know what's coming back. So it's almost, they're aware, like we said, is this kind of spaces that are in front of us, around us, which are geometric, that we cannot enter, not unless we're taking something like a DMT or something like that. We can go into the realms of, if somebody's got, like you said, if somebody's all of a sudden got like a brainwave switch and they're into the realms of schizophrenia or psychosis, they may see entities that they're not tuned into in a normal pattern of mind, you know?
Yeah.
It's just like the degree's gone that way or that way, and all of a sudden they can see energy in different forms. That's why they say, well, could you put your hand through that entity that you've seen? Well, they probably could, because it's not, all it is like a vapor, like almost, isn't it funny when you actually hear the saying of like a ghost or something? It's almost like an image of plasma.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is electric, which is an electric build-up, isn't it?
Well, I mean, we are then, for all intents and purposes, 65% plasma. We are 65% photons, and so we're light beings. And so with this 35% then that seemingly gives us matter, then, you know, it's less than half of us, Paul.
You got water to consider. You got all these things to consider what we're actually built upon.
Yeah.
You know, you need the light, water, H2O, and then, like you say, the plasma area of it. When you look into it, there's not a lot out there what you can actually gather into. It's just a case of it's there. It's like seeing an image, like you said. If you're on DMT or mushrooms, you see something like I see that face. Was it just a plasmatic version of an entity that I've seen that's actually implanted onto the tree, or was it the spirit of the tree? And it can only talk to me by showing me that image. But if it just showed me, what could I say, a waving branch going like that, I'm thinking, well, it's just a waving branch. But
yeah, and it's a curious thing, because the way DMT speaks to you is that when you see a tree, Paul, and if the tree's like this, normally, then what you've got the DMT, all of a sudden it'll be going like that.
Has it got a face as well then?
It doesn't have a face like this, but invariably there's faces and creatures in the limbs. You can look up this branch and you can see like some sort of lizard.
Was it like when we was in Bradgate Park that winter and was all them things?
Yeah,
but that was a bit more darker in there.
It is like that, because we can see them in this reality. We look over there, we're walking around the woods and we go, you can see it as clear as day, there's an elf in the tree. And then you can see that there's some sort of like bat creature in that tree. You know, we do it all the time. And so the funny thing is about it is that this is what DMT shows you, that they are there, Paul. And I don't know whether it's, you could say it is our mind creating it, but you'd need a very vivid imagination, because I looked for these faces when the DMT had worn off, and I couldn't see them without inventing, well, if this was like this and that was like that, then I could see this thing I saw before, you see?
Right, yeah. I see what
Yeah.
you're saying. So it's almost when you're in that, when it's tuned into it, you can see them, but when you're back out of it, it doesn't exist because you're not in that, you're not tuned into that wavelength.
Yeah, but you can see another variety.
Well, yeah, you can see another variety, but wouldn't it be bizarre if you could see that and took a photo, if you had your camera and you was looking at that tree and it was showing you those images and you filmed at the same time as you was on that,
Yeah.
and then when you came back out of it, it wouldn't. This is bizarre because if it wasn't, because all cameras are tuned in to see the field we see, but in a case of there must be other ways of actually making a camera that sees things on the wavelength.
Sees the DMT world. Yeah, you see, if I was recording and when I looked at the recording back again, I saw the trees doing what I saw, then that'd be far out, man. That'd be absolutely wacky. But yeah, all
Well,
this stuff
isn't that what the Google Deep Dream is doing, really, isn't it? It's kind of getting the same thing, and isn't that bizarre? It's showing your faces on them images, like it's transferring it and then morphing it into a different field. So it's saying that
so the computer does that. The shrooms do it. Acid does it. DMT does it. Dreams do it. Just our everyday consciousness does it. Because everything is an expression of life.
And like you say to people, kind of wake up or get out of your slumber. But the fact of the matter is, everything's geared to shut that down. The imagination, it's trapping the imagination like a mind forged manacles, as one great philosopher used to say. Most men's minds are in mind forged manacles, locked in.
Yeah.
You know, the key's been turned and thrown away. You know.
Yeah.
And it's like locked in and never to be released.
And just then, finally, for this video, to wrap up, when you look at them, these substances, Paul, that there's no evidence whatsoever that psilocybin or DMT is or has any adverse effects, short term or long term, and yet there is lots of evidence for psilocybin so far that it's potentially very, very beneficial for the health and for lots of cures and this, that and the other. Just a 5-minute DMT trip can show you so much about this world and bring about such an amazing appreciation of other dimensions, your mind, the world about you, whatever. Just an amazing positive experience. And yet they want to crush this with an absolute state of urgency, whereby they are prepared to take you from wherever you are at any given time and put you in a fucking cage to make sure you don't ever do that again. What the fuck is going on?
Well, you can go on a trip, but you've got to get on one of their aircraft and pay the actual airfare, haven't you? They don't want you to go on one of those ground-based trips.
Yeah.
You know, cheap ones.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, you. That's right. You've got to be getting on the plane or the train or somewhere. You can't be going in your bedroom and going on trips, people. It's illegal.
All right, mate.
Fucking hell. It's getting bizarre, mate, that's for sure. It's getting really, really bizarre. And you see, the more bizarre it gets, the more inclined I am to really just take things not so seriously, because you can't help then that we are a part of all this that's going on. We're creating it. We're creating all this stuff. We are creators, and we can see that very soon we're going to be creating ourselves. And so you think, hang on, what's the big deal about this body? Surely there can't be any big deal. There's only a big deal what's gone on in here because they've fucked us up, Paul. They've fucked us up for a long, long time. And I'm very, very inclined to believe that there's negative energies because so many people so pervasively talk about it. Archons or Anunnaki, whatever it was, coming down, locking down the human spirit and soul.
Oh, without a doubt. And then kind of grounding us. It's all grounded, isn't it? It's all like down. You know, everything's kind of like you said. You look at the news. We haven't talked about any conspiracy today. We haven't talked about it because it's not in my mind at the moment. I'm looking at other things. So what I'm saying is, once you tuned into that, it's almost like a monster in its own right, isn't it? It goes right. We're
Absolutely.
More.
Yes. control it. When we look at wow, and so wonderful.
Count.
How to